All right, let's bring in a guest who went from writing about technology to investing in it. Stuart Alsop, a partner at Alsop Partners, which recently closed a new $100 million fund. Now, before founding Alsop, he was at New Enterprise Associates. And Stuart, welcome to Bloomberg West.
Thank you very much.
So, all right, so you raised $100 million in this environment. You know, we talk about all this stuff going on, but it's not so easy to raise money these days.
It's not so easy to raise money. It took us almost 2 years to raise that fund. We started out in the middle of the recession to go persuade institutional investors to give us their money, lock it up for 8 to 10 years, and take a chance on us.
Well, so investors writ large are worried about Madoff. They're worried about 2008. But you know, you have a long record investing in technology. You've been around for many cycles. A few. I'm not saying you're old. I'm just saying we've known each other for a while.
Mature.
Mature. Well, I'm not saying that either. You said that. I'm not seconding. But technology excites investors in a certain way. Are you getting a sense of that when you're out there raising money for this fund?
Well, I think earlier you were talking about companies going public, that there's a new cycle going on of liquidity, and investors always get excited about that. Basically, we raised this fund by predicting the next bubble, beyond the social media bubble that we're experiencing right now, where companies are going public. So we're predicting a bubble in 2014 or 2015. And I got to tell you, if you go to an investor and say that you know when a bubble's going to happen, they tend to get excited about that.
Yeah.
So, Stuart, you don't think we're entering another bubble right now?
Well, we are in a mini bubble. There are different kinds of bubbles. There's small bubbles and big bubbles. We're in a small bubble right now, which you could call the social media bubble. Facebook and Twitter and Zynga, these companies that have this enormous valuations, regardless of what's justified. And everybody has an expectation that these companies are going to go public. What we're forecasting is a new bubble, much more like the internet bubble, that affects all markets and all segments, and is much more broad-based, happening in another 3 or 4 years.
And you have an interesting idea about how the internet is evolving, called the Evernet. Can you explain that for us?
Sure. As Cory was saying, I'm mature, and we've been around the computer industry for a while. Well, the computer industry itself has been around for a while, and you might notice a pattern in the computer industry where we go through these technology cycles, where we adopt new technologies and new companies come along and innovate, and then people get excited by them, and then there are bubbles that are produced as a result of that. So my partner and I were sitting around a year ago and going, well, the last technology cycle was really the internet cycle, which happened in 1995. It's been 15 years. What's the next one going to be? And so we've nominated it as the Evernet technology cycle, and that's the basis on which we're forecasting this next bubble.
No, I didn't say you said you're mature, just so all of our mutual friends did not, Anyway, let's go back to that. Because
I'm happy to call you old if you'd like.
You wouldn't be the first. When we look back at the way the world was, sort of the first iteration of technology writ large, and we did some full screen graphics to kind of explain this. So, the client-server world, as defined as what? What technologies were the first tech bubble, if you will?
That wasn't the first. I mean, you're probably not old enough to remember this, but there were things called mainframes, and then mini computers, and then time sharing. So there have been many cycles.
And you predicted the death of the mainframe in 1997.
Well, we won't go down that particular path, but I did predict the death of the mainframe. Didn't bother to actually die on it.
So client-server is what technology?
So client-server is really when PCs were connected on local area networks. It was not connected, through the wide area, through the internet, which came along later, but when companies were able to connect their own computers inside of offices. And so there was PC software and client-server software and servers, and that all happened during the 1980s. And then in the early 90s...
All right, so we've got another first graphic. Just we pull up the second graphic, we can see that the early 90s, we get to the internet bubble, the internet connection craze.
Right, and that's where you connected companies across nations and countries through the internet, and that's when we went into the telecoms craze, when big telecoms companies were planting fiber all across the country and being very valued for that, and as well as the internet companies, the e-commerce companies like Yahoo and Amazon and so forth.
So is it really about iterations of connectivity, that things were connected within the office and then connected outside of the office? But what's next beyond that?
So the next thing is there are a bunch of different pieces of it. It really goes to being this ubiquitous broadband network that's always present, regardless of whether you're on a cell phone or in your office or at home. So it will affect the home as much as it will affect the office. And it really goes to the ubiquity, and the pace at which change happens on the network. So how fast the network is running and how present it is.
And maybe the cloud part of that. It's interesting that you put the cloud in the next bubble, not the current bubble.
Yeah, we actually don't have a cloud right now. Most of it is just talk that's going on.
Tell that to the guys across the street at Salesforce, or the investors are looking at the valuation of Salesforce. I think they'd say there's a cloud and a bubble right now.
Salesforce is a cloud, but when you talk about the cloud as a sort of fully integrated thing where it's not just Salesforce or just SuccessFactors or just WebEx or these individual companies where it all comes together, and it's the fundamental way that the cloud works. I don't even know what else to call it now, but the cloud. But there are other pieces of this as well as security, because we're going to have a whole new generation of technology that needs to be secured, and so and storage, where you distribute storage across the cloud. These are all separate pieces of the development of the Evernet. So we think of the cloud as just one opportunity in the evolution of the Evernet.
We will be the TV to say this a lot. We'll be watching, but we will be. Stuart, thanks for joining us here on Bloomberg West. Appreciate it.